Oh, look, a button. And there's the bucket of wine. It's kind of a large freezer, isn't it? Why not? Ah! Okay, I hope it didn't attract too much attention. Oh, and there's a big button there. Cool. I love doing that. It's like my favorite hobby. Stealing torches. Oh wow, it's a huge operation. There's some stuff here. Another trap. Red kitchen reader. Sneak. Though naturally modest, I must admit to some pleasure in being dubbed by our Emperor's father, the late Pelagius IV, as the finest connoisseur in Tamriel. He was also good enough to appoint me the first, and to this day, the only master of cuisine in the imperial court. Other emperors, of course, had master chefs and cooks in their staff, but only during the reign of Pelagius was there someone of rarefied tastes to plan the menus and select the finest produce to be served at court. His son Uriel requested that I continue in that position, but I was forced to graciously decline the invitation because of age and poor health. This book, however, is not intended to be autobiography. I have had a great many adventures in my life as a knight of fine dining, but my intention for this book is much more specific. Many times I have been asked, what is the best thing you ever ate? The answer to that is not a simple one. Much of the pleasure of a great meal is not only in the food, it is in the setting, the company, the mood. Eat an indifferently cooked roast or simple stew with your one true love, and it is a meal to be remembered. Have an excellent 12-course feast with dull company while feeling slightly ill, and it will be forgotten, or remembered only with distaste. Sometimes meals are memorable for the experiences that come before them. Fairly recently in northern Skyrim, I had a bit of bad luck. I was with a group of fishermen, observing their technique of capturing a very rare, very delicious fish called meringar. The fish is found only far from shore, so it was a week's voyage out beyond civilization. Hang on, Skyrim. Okay, meringar. Well, we found our school of meringar, but as the fishermen began spearing them, the blood in the water attracted a family of drug who capsized the boat and everyone on it. I managed to save myself, but the fishermen and all our supplies were lost. Sailing is not, alas, a skill I have picked up over the years, and it took me 3 weeks with no provision to find my way back to the kingdom of solitude. I had managed to catch enough small fish to eat raw, but I was still delirious from hunger and thirst. The first meal I had on shore of Nordic roast boar, jasbay wine, and yes, fillet of meringar would have been excellent under any circumstances, but because of the threat of starvation I had faced, it was divine beyond words. Sometimes meal are even memorable for the experiences that follow them. In a tavern in Falanestai, I was introduced to a simple peasant dish called kolapai. Kolapai? Delicious little balls of flesh, thick with spices and juice, so savory I asked the proprietress where they came. Mother Pascot explained that the colopi were an arboreal rodent that fed exclusively on the most tender branches of the gratoke. And I was fortunate enough to be in the Valenwood at the time of the annual harvest. I was invited to join with a small colony of Nga monkeys, who alone could gather these succulent little mice. Because they live only on the slenderest branches of the trees and only on the ends of those same branches, the Igma had to climb beneath them and jump up to pick the colopi from their perches. Igma are, of course, naturally dexterous, but I was then relatively open the skill menu to level up. Oh, I leveled up? Oh, okay, cool. But I was then relatively young and spry, and they let me help them. While I could never jump as high as they could, with practice I found that if I kept my head and upper body rigid and launched off the ground with a scissors-like kick, I could reach the colopi on the lowest branches of the tree. I believe I gathered 3 colopi myself, though with considerable effort. To this day, I salivate at the thought of colopi, but my mind is on the image of myself and several dozen igmas leaping around beneath the shade of the grat oaks. Then, of course, there are the rare meals memorable for what came before, after, and during the meal, which brings me to the finest thing I ever ate, the meal that began my lifelong obsession with excellent cuisine. I'm trying to figure out where the parallel is with thievery, or stealth, or whatever that was, the skill that I gained from the book, but I'm assuming that that's the whole point of the story here. As a child growing up in Cheyndenhall, I did not care for food at all. I recognized the value of nutrition, for I was not a complete dullard. But Cheyndenhall is a nice place. But I cannot say that mealtime brought me any pleasure at all. Partly, of course, this was the fault of my family's cook, who believed that spices were an invention of the Daedra, and that good Imperials should like their food boiled, textureless and flavorless. Ugh. Though I think she was alone in assigning a religious significance to this, my sampling of traditional Cyrillic cuisine suggests that the philosophy is regrettably common in my homeland. Though I did not enjoy food per se, I was not a morose, unadventurous child in other respects. I enjoyed the fights in the arena, of course, and nothing made me happier than wandering the streets of my town with my imagination as my own companion. It was on one such jaunt on a sunny Fridas in mid-year that I made a discovery that changed my heart and my life. There were several old abandoned houses down the streets from my own home, and I often played around them, imagining them to be filled with desperate outlaws or haunted by hundreds of evil spirits. I never had the nerve to go inside. In fact, had I not that day seen some other children who had delighted in teasing me in the past, I would never have gone in. But I needed a sanctuary, so I ran into the closest one. The house seemed to be as desolate as on the inside as on the outside. Further proof that no one lived there, and had not for some time. When I heard footsteps, I could only assume that the loathsome little urchins I hoped to avoid had followed me in. I escaped to the basement, and from there, past broken down wall that led to a well. Could still hear the footsteps above, and I decided that I see where this is going. That I decided that I was still loath to confront my tormentors. Knocking aside the rusty locks on the well, I slipped down below. The well was dry, but I discovered it was far from empty. There was a sort of a sub-basement to the house. 3 large rooms that were clean, furnished, and evidently not abandoned at all. My sense told me that someone was living in the house after all. Not only my sense of sight, but my sense of smell. For one of the rooms was a large red-painted kitchen, and spread out on the coals of the oven was a roast carved into small morsels. Passing a beautiful and appropriate bas-relief of a mother carving a roast for grateful children, I beheld the kitchen and the wonders within. Like I said, food had never interested me before, but I was transfixed, and even now as I write this, the words fail me in describing the rich aroma that hung in the air. It was like nothing I ever smelled in my family's kitchen, and I was unable to stop myself from popping one of the steaming chunks of meat into my mouth. The taste was magical. Yeah, I know, I'll open the skill menu in a minute. Jeez. The taste was magical, the flesh tender and sweet. Before I knew it, I had eaten everything on the stove, and I learned that at that very second the truth that food can and should be sublime. After gorging myself and having my culinary epiphany, I was conflicted on what to do. Part of me wanted to wait down in that red kitchen until the chef returned, so I could ask him what his secret recipe was for the delicious meat. Part of me recognized that I had stolen into someone's house and eaten their dinner, and it would be wise to leave while I could. That was what I did. Time and again, it's the same thing. I've tried to return to that strange, wonderful place, but Training Hall had changed over time. Old houses had been reclaimed, and new houses abandoned. I know what to look for on the inside of the house. The well, the beautiful etching of a woman preparing to carve out the roast for her children, the red kitchen itself, but I've never been able to find the house again. After a while, as I grew older, I stopped trying. It is better as it remains in my memory, the most perfect meal I ever ate. The inspiration of my life that had followed was all cooked up, however, with that fabulous meat right there in the red kitchen. You know what this is, right? It's talking about Chain Hall, abandoned houses. Skyrim is what, 200 years after what's been happening in Oblivion? Dark Brotherhood. Was it really Red Kitchen? That's the question that's popping up in my head, and just the subtlety of the story is giving me chills of excitement. This is why I love the Elder Scrolls. It's not necessarily the reading, because you can always read a book, like an actual book, but it's within like a different world, and you can say like that's the logic behind like the writers that write these books, not necessarily the characters, but like the developers, the flavor of it. It's kind of like a Fallout shtick of humor with 1950 futuristic apocalyptic stuff. So it's very rich, and the idea that there's no pictures or anything, there's no flashback, it just is a simple little story, and with my own imagination I was able to piece it together. And is it right? Like what am I thinking right now? Is it what's truly happening? Who knows? But that's the beauty of it.